What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles, the original food service equipment repair podcast built by technicians for technicians. Whether you're on the front lines of repair, keeping the kitchen running smoothly, or just passionate about the food service repair industry, this podcast is your go-to source for expert insights, tech tips, and real stories from the field. Today, we have very special guest, David Duckworth. David is a training director for Training Unlimited. Training Unlimited is a training section of Service Unlimited, and it trains new technicians. They get them started in an 8-week program. They're in the hands-on, in the labs. They go out in the field. They come back. It's a pretty cool program. So let's see what David has to say about that. What's up, everybody? And tonight I have very special guest, David Duckworth. Now, a lot of you guys may know who David is if you've been around the industry for a while. David is now currently a training director for the Training Unlimited program through Unlimited Service Group, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
So are you still an employee at, I can't remember the name. Is it
Commercial Kitchen Parts and Service?
Yeah, so you're based out of there, of course, but do you still do some training stuff there, or is it mainly just the Unlimited side now?
No, I'm doing everything pretty much Training Unlimited program, USG. So I'm not doing much of the day-to-day, the commercial kitchen.
Nice.
So,
Now, you've been in the industry for quite some time. Do you want to talk about
long time.
you want to talk about how you got into it, and do you want to talk about how you got into it, and what roles you've done over the years? Because you've done a lot of different stuff, and you've been involved with a lot more than just commercial parts. You've helped out with Safesa, some other things. So I mean, you've had a busy 30+ years in the industry.
Yeah, I think I got in this industry kind of like everybody else does. It seems like everybody kind of falls into this industry.
Mm-hmm.
I was prior to the food service industry, I was a electrician. So came right out of a high school, went straight into the trades as an apprentice in 1981. Got my journeyman license 4 years later, and was operating a truck with a helper, and then everything went to hell in Texas when it came to business in about 86, and about mid 86 the bottom dropped out of the market and everything just came to a standstill in Texas work wise. So struggled there with that company a little bit for about a year, and then eventually just got laid off in 87 after 7 years, or well, a little after 87, and then jumped around a couple of electric shops. And the one point that right before I got into this industry, I was working straight cash every week. I didn't know if I had a job the next coming day or next coming week. It was just straight cash. And my sister, who still works for Commercial Kitchen, called me and said, "Hey, we lost 2 techs. Would you interested in doing service technician?" At that time, I was like, if it's a steady paycheck, yes. So I joined Commercial Kitchen May 2nd of 1988, and knew nothing about. I didn't know a pilot safety from a thermostat, from a combination valve. Didn't know any of that stuff.
You've got a story a lot like mine. We talked in the past. We done some stuff together, and I was the same way. I took a vocational program in high school for electrical. I came out and did 6-7 years, and then I kind of just fell into this, and it's been a blessing, man. It's been a really cool career.
Yeah, I mean, 36 years as of last May. So, and all 36 has been with Commercial Kitchen. So, I started out as a technician. It's a little hard, a little different back then. It was like you rode around 2 weeks and they said, go.
It wasn't much different 20 years later, because I've been doing this 18, 19 years, and I got the same thing. I rode someone for the first week and a half. My uniforms came in. They're like, he'll figure it out. Just let him go.
Yeah. So I'm sure they wrote off quite a bit of money on me back in the day. I learned a lot of the stuff the hard way. But yeah, I was a service technician here in San Antonio, and the original owner, this will be my third acquisition, I guess you would say, with Commercial Kitchen. My original owner did most of the out of town work. That was my conveyor ovens was my forte. So I worked pretty much on pizza ovens and did a lot of traveling in and out of town all the time. And then Brock bought the company in 1994, and he wanted to grow the company and expand beyond just San Antonio. We were just San Antonio at the
Mm-hmm.
time, so I saw that as my opportunity to. I wanted more. I wanted to do something more than just be a technician. So talked to him, and right after not too long after he bought the company, just said, "Hey, whatever you got in mind, you know, don't leave me out of the equation." Um, I just basically said, I don't want to be 50 and driving a vehicle, driving around in a service van. So opportunity came, opened up our Austin branch back in '96. Started operating that branch as the branch manager, ground up, build. We didn't have a location there. We had to get a location, hire a couple of guys. Got started with just there was four of us, sorry, in that building, and operated that for close to 12 years, and grew the branch and grew the product all through commercial. I mean, through Austin area, and just made a name for ourselves up there.
Yeah,
Um,
you guys have a great product down there, great name to that you guys represent the industry. So that's really good, something to be proud of.
yeah, well, thanks. That's kind of got me at that period. I started getting introduced into Sofessa a little bit back
Mm-hmm.
then. I attended a couple of meetings early on, uh, but I guess the biggest change came in. It's around 2007, I guess it was. We, as a company, were starting to talk about centralizing a training program. Now, we had done kind of where give you the kind of background where Training Unlimited started in reality. Um, and I wasn't even involved with the very first one. 2001, we were growing really fast as a company,
Mm-hmm.
and we needed technicians. And as everybody knows, you can't find people that do our work. They just don't stand on the side of the street and say, "Hey, hire me." You've got to, create your own. It's the
Mm-hmm.
way we had to do it. And so we put an ad out in the paper, and we had about 15 people apply, and we tested them, and we just brought them in for 12 weeks, and they just used the tech train books to go through, and we tested them, and out of that, I think we wound up with 6 people
That's
at the
not bad.
very end.
That's not bad. It could have been worse.
No, and I was a recipient of a couple of those guys, so they helped out really, dramatically in our Austin branch, to come on in and have that training behind them. So, we did it that one time, and we kind of put it to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we started talking about it as a management group, and so I raised my hand again. I said, "Hey, you know, I want to take this on and create a training, something centralized that we're doing consistently across the board for all our branches. One way of teaching them, instead of having multiple ways that people learn." Um, and so came back in, I say around 2007, I guess, back to San Antonio, and had a first class in 2007. Again, we just used the old Tech Train books for that class, the first one. I think I had about 12 people in there, something like that. Um, Still have a couple of those individuals today, still working for us. One of them's a service manager, uh, and one's a field supervisor, and one is a manager of our installation department. So it's pretty amazing to have people hang around after that, putting that kind of investment in them.
Yeah, that goes to show that you guys, you believe in them and you want them to be here, though, to take that time to invest. And,
Yeah.
that's the same thing our program is. It's a challenge, but if you're willing to step up to that challenge, we're willing to invest in you as
Yep.
an individual, as a technician, as a person, and we want to see you succeed. So I think that helps, people buy in or be a part of what we're trying to do, and
Right.
makes them feel home and secure and safe here. And I think that's, goes a long way for retention and stuff like that.
Yeah. And like I said, it was pretty early stages.
Mhm.
The program's changed quite a bit from the beginning stages, and I learned a lot from. I have to give a shout out to other people in the industry that I learned from. John Schwint, Paul DeCotley, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, Bill Finley. other manufacturer trainers, listening to them and getting feedback from them. So, I learned a lot from those individuals. Um, so and just kept trying to develop the program, and so it's pretty nice. We've run quite a few people through, and it was called CKU back then, Commercial Kitchen University, and that's how we badged it and operated it. And we would do a couple a year. Um, and then kind of fast forward, we went through a lot of growth there, and then here a couple years ago we went through acquisition with Unlimited Service Group, and they liked the program. They saw what it was. I'm assuming they heard through the industry and others about the program and wanted to spread that within our group. And that's been my challenge for really the last year and a half, is to make that happen.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to let up anytime soon either.
No, and there's been a lot of people that helped out with that too.
Hmm.
By all means, I didn't do it by myself. Um, Dale Blackburn got the first classroom
Hmm.
pretty much built out for us in Whaley's. And then we brought in Jeff as a trainer there, got that class underway in 2023, went there several times and worked with him. And he came down to San Antonio and, observes our classes that
Hmm.
we were holding down here. And we've spread it now we got 4 locations. We'll be open our grand opening there in Sacramento here on January of this coming year. That'll be
So,
four.
so we're in Texas, we're in South Carolina,
Minnesota,
Minneapolis, and now
Sacramento,
the West
California.
Coast.
Yeah, got that West Coast. At the East Coast, West Coast. Well, not
North and
so much
South,
East Coast. Yeah, still got a little bit over the East Coast to think about
but
down the road here.
it's pretty close though. So it's better than the options before. So it's a really cool program. I've seen a lot of stuff about it. I like what you do as far as the boards. Starting at the very beginning and just bringing the guys through from the very basics and just working step by step by step and building on those fundamentals as they go. Um, so it's not a 12-week program anymore, correct? It's a little shorter for what we.
Right. We reduced it down to 8 weeks. We were doing
Mm,
12 back when it was CKU, and I had already reduced it down to 10.
mhm.
And then we went and dropped another 2 weeks off it. There was some things that we could, left out. And so we've got it down to 8 and keep refining it even more all the time. I mean, you learn something new from every class.
Mhm.
Each group is different. Um, and so we learn something new, and that prompts changes to the program periodically, based on feedback or based on just how the interaction with the students happens. Um, so I say it's kind of a living program. It's always adapting to whatever needs we need to do to make it better, or convey the message better.
So this program is designed for just people who have no experience in industry, correct? To come in
Correct.
and we teach them.
Correct.
That's cool. I haven't partaken in it because I've been in this for a little while, but uh, it seems like a really cool thing to do, to bring someone in that was wanting to learn about the industry, to grow, and just to put them through it, and just to watch them develop as a person, as a technician. And, a year later, 2 years later, you see them out in the field, or you see them somewhere, and they're out there just killing it. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment for what you've built, the Training Unlimited program. So I'm excited to see these guys come through it, and women, and what they do for the industry.
Yeah. I guess us trainers always have us saying, it's so great to see when that light bulb goes off.
Hmm.
We talk to them about that all the time in the class. That
Hmm.
hey, sometimes we're filling you with a lot of information right now. It's still a little jumbled in your head. I said, but there'll be that day, that light bulb goes off and you go, okay, I
Yeah.
know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know.
When I teach SFS, I teach refrigeration, and it's the same thing. Like when someone gets it, and like they like, oh, and just the confidence, and they got it because they don't have to show it, but you can just see the look on
Mhm.
their face. And it's like, okay, he's got it, he knows it now.
Yeah.
And
You know.
my son, both my boys work with me. My oldest son's been here a little over 2 years, and one day I was meeting up with him to do something. We had an air call beforehand. It was a dish machine. It wouldn't come on. It's got a PLC on it. It's got a touchscreen display, all kinds of stuff. And we get there, and like he comes in, he goes, "I got this." He pops down, and he's like, "I don't have no power coming out of my 12-volt power supply. I got power coming in." He unhooks the outgoing wire. Power doesn't come back. He's like, "So it's not shorted. It's not drawing it down." He busts out the wiring schematic and he reads the wiring schematic, and it just like clicked that he knew the wiring schematic. He knew how to read it.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, you're good now. I don't have to follow you around no more." I said, "You'll figure it out. Once if you can understand a wiring schematic, you're golden,
Yeah.
man."
Yeah. I always think that's a big key, for any of the students is to try to master wiring diagrams. The two disciplines, electric, gas, those two are completely different.
Mm,
Electric is somewhat a very exacting, as I explained. Electricity and electrical components. It's all math,
mm-hmm,
and it's very exact. You either have it or you don't.
mm-hmm.
Gas, now you're dealing with chemistry, and it has a lots of variables that can throw you for a loop. Um, so, but it takes time for them, to master that. And but this step here is to give them those building blocks to come out of the door and get a good solid footing of how to use their meter correctly, what things mean, the terminology
Mm-hmm.
in the industry. I always tell them, when you're calling, trying to get technical help, you need to know what you're talking about. You need to be able to use the terminology. If you don't, they're not going to want to talk to you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Calling tech support, understanding you may not know exactly what it is, but hopefully you can explain close enough to where they can understand it. Because sometimes I remember being new in this and calling tech support and be like, "Oh, I don't know what this thing does. What is this? What is what does this thing do? How am I supposed to check this?"
Yeah, yeah,
Especially nowadays, things are getting more and more complex. I mean, some of these combi ovens, miles of wire in them, and just I mean, I worked on one day. I'll go a little side story here. It was it was a 120-volt gas valve, and they were feeding it with 120 volts DC, but it was going through a little board, and the board was bad and wouldn't let no power come out. So I had to get the oven running. I was like, "Well, why are they converting this?" So I ran. I was like, "I'm gonna see if this gas valve works." I said, "This board is not putting out output." So I just ran the 120 volts straight to the gas valve, and it worked. And I called the factory, and I was like, "Hey, this conversion board is bad. It converts it from AC to DC." I said, "Why are you guys doing that?" And he couldn't explain it to me. I was like, "Well," I said, "I wired around and the gas valve's working and the unit's running. What do you want me to do?" He's like, "You did what?" And I was like, "You can't tell me why you're doing it, but you're going to get mad that I did it." I was like, what sense does that make? So, but
yeah.
me just being me, I probably went a little, probably shouldn't have done it, but it worked. And they sent me a gas conversion board and nothing ever else happened. So I guess I got lucky on that one.
That was it. Yeah, I would say you probably did.
But, but I asked the question, he couldn't explain it. And that's what I don't like when I call tech support. If I ask a question and they can't explain it, because then I'm like, well, you don't know either. And you're telling me what to do. That's just my mind. That's how my
Yeah,
mind works some days. But Um, so we're in 4 locations now.
yeah.
Always a possibility of another one in the future. Just depends on demand and location, that kind of stuff. Currently, we're just doing hot side stuff, correct?
Right. Right now it's just, electric, gas, and steam, troubleshooting skills. We add into this class the social side of that. Like I say, we
Hmm.
always say that 50% of the job is fixing the customer
Yeah.
and equipment, and so we always add a lot of things of that nature into the class and talk about those throughout the class, and how to conduct yourself, and the posture and your weight, your tools that you use, how you
Mhm.
use them, how you do in your workspace. So you write tickets, properly, and say things so that I always my piece has always been, if you did $2,000 worth of repairs, you need $2,000 worth of information on that ticket that explains
Yeah.
why they spent $2,000.
Yeah. I think soft skills is one of the most undertaught things in any industry whatsoever. Like
Yeah,
we focus so heavy on how to actually do it, but we don't focus on the interaction with the customer. I've had
yeah,
guys in the past that can literally fix anything under the sun, but they can't talk to a customer to save the lives, and the customer hates them because
yeah,
they're short, they're abrupt, they don't explain things to the customer. I mean, I tell people all the time, I can go into somewhere and I can walk out and that thing can be down, and I can explain it in a way that they understand, they're comfortable. I get a resolution. I will get you fixed, that they're at least they're not mad. You know what I mean?
yeah,
They understand. But if you go in there and you fix it, and you walk out and say, "It was broke. I fixed it. See you later." They don't ever want you back.
No, it was always great to come. I remember back in my days and as a service technician, and you had your key customers that you always
Hmm.
did a lot of work for, and there's nothing, no better feeling when they ask for you
Hmm.
to come back, and or when you walk in the door, they actually have a smile on, even though you're costing them money, they have a smile on their face that you showed up, because they know that you're going to get it done and you're going to keep them informed. So
Yep, I've got customers that I know their kids' names, their grandkids' names. I mean, it's amazing what those relationships you build over the
Mhm.
years.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
I
and
s-
they'll, like you said, you'll have a customer that'll request you. I'm like, well, he's a week out. Well, we can survive a week without this. We'll just wait on Pat. I'm like, phew,
yeah,
that's rough. I'm like, I'll figure out a way to get there sooner. But
yeah. So like you say, right now we're concentrating on kind of the hot side of that.
Mhm.
2025, we've got refrigeration on our slate to add to that program. Uh, Also, kind of like the next level.
Mhm.
There's, right now we're teaching the basics to get them started, but like as you mentioned earlier, we've got new equipment with PLCs in them, the high tech computers, the high tech burner systems, and the combis and things of that nature. So that's kind of like that next tier that we've got to bring those individuals up on. So
Mhm.
looking to create some, as we call a level 2 class, where we're concentrating a little more on a higher level skills, troubleshooting that type equipment, than what we're doing right now as far as basics.
That's cool. Always looking forward. Always looking to develop our guys more. That just goes back to show, we are invested in technicians. We are
Yes.
invested in their future. Um, I think that's really a cool thing to do. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the other stuff come about. Like you said, the level two, the refrigeration stuff. Just because I love training refrigeration, and I love seeing guys that want to do it. It's kind of a lost art. I think a lot of guys don't want to do it. They just, I'll do hot side. I don't want to deal with cold. I don't want to be on a roof. I don't want to be outside. I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to carry a winter coat on my van year round because I got to work in this walk-in freezer in the winter. But
Yeah, let's carry a parka.
yeah, yeah. There's a winter coat that lives in my van even when it's 100 degrees outside. Just the weirdest thing in the
Yeah,
world. I couldn't
yeah,
imagine being in Texas 110 degrees and going into a 0 degree freezer and back outside to 110 degrees.
yeah. It usually snows in the doorway.
Yeah, I did a frozen food place. They actually just went out of business last month, but they were converting over some of their stuff, and it was like July. It was like 98 degrees. It was pouring down rain, so to get 100% humidity, I'd be inside -10, outside 90 degrees. Inside, my facial hair was frozen, my shirt was frozen. You go outside and it turned to sweat. You go back inside and it freeze. I was like, I don't know how guys do this in the South, man.
No, as an electrician, I had done a big, large food service, Labatt food service, where they had buckling concrete floor inside, and we were trying to put a system in to actually level the floor back out through heat in the floor, but we had to work in that you know freezer, and we had to wear parkas, and you could only stay in there for 20 minutes at a time.
Yeah,
You
you're
had to
not
come.
getting a whole lot done in 20 minutes.
No, no, it was very slow work, and they were having to use antifreeze on the saw to cut the concrete so it wouldn't freeze.
You can't use water. You got to use antifreeze. You know it's a bad
No,
day.
yeah, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, lot of experiences.
You
Um,
know, the Training Unlimited program. I mean, it just shows that Unlimited Service Group's really investing in the guys.
yes.
People a lot of times are scared of big giant companies. I've mainly worked for big giant companies. I've worked for General Parts for almost 14 years now. Before that, I worked for um, Ecolab when they were GCS and they were acquiring companies. So I've worked for bigger
Hmm.
companies. I worked for a couple smaller companies, but I pretty much most of my experience at the bigger companies, and I can say that we have that bigger company, but we still care about the technicians. Um,
Yeah.
it's still about safety. It's still about making sure the guys are taken care of, and I see it every day. I work in Indy, and Gary's here, and I talk to Gary, and he cares about the guys. People may not think that, but he really does.
No, there's the investment in these individuals. It's again, it's rewarding because
Mhm.
again, the point of the program is to bring new people into this industry.
Mhm.
So like you said earlier, they don't have to have any knowledge of our industry whatsoever. They just have to have that willingness to learn and that drive. Um, and then we can change their earning potential as an individual for the rest of their life. They will not want for work for the rest of their life learning this trade. By all means, I mean it's you're an example. I'm an example. 36 years. This is um, made my family be able to have the life it is, and my kids to have the life they have. Um, it's hard work, but I'm not afraid of hard work, and that's it's done me well to stick with it and be willing to learn something new, take on a new challenge all the time.
Yeah, if you're a guy or a gal, I say guy all the time because generally that's what I deal with.
Yeah.
But if you're a technician or a person that enjoys a challenge, you always want to be stimulated. You like doing things that other people can't. This is like the perfect career for you because nothing's ever the same. You may get a couple calls that are the same, but generally every day, every single call is a different challenge, a different puzzle, and that's why I love it.
Yeah, and of course, you always have new equipment coming out,
Mm-hmm.
all the time. So there's always something new around the corner that you've got to learn about, and you never, as we tell these individuals, you'll never stop learning. Like I say, I've been doing this 36 years. I'm still learning things, something new, and they're going to touch equipment that I have not touched before. They're working on things that my period out of the field working as a technician, I haven't mastered that particular piece of equipment because I don't work on it, in the field anymore. So they're going to work on things that are pretty advanced from some of the stuff I started on.
So we had a guy, he just retired, but he started in this industry the year I was born. And I was like, I just talked to him about, the challenges of like going through everything he's seen. He talks about that he used to have just like a few totes of parts, and it's the same contactor for every oven out there. It's the same thermostat for every fryer, same high limit. He said, and now like everything's proprietary, everything's its own thing, everything has a touch screen, everything has miles of wire. You get some manufacturers where they make one color wire for everything in there and they number them, and you're like, I hope the numbers are right. I hope the numbers don't fall off. Just, I mean, 40 years in an industry is absolutely insane, the amount of changes that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, consolidation, when I was early on, all the factories were independent, all the service companies were independent. But I just, the program thing I really love about it is, we're trying to give them the information and not have to make those hard mistakes that I or you or others that have been around a long time have made in the field, to try to, point them in the right direction so that they avoid those mistakes all the time.
Yeah, I like it when someone asks me like, "Well, how do you know not to do this?" I'm like, because I've done it and it's cost a lot of money to fix it.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you this just to tell you. I'm telling you this because I've done it myself, and I don't want you to go through what I had to go through.
Yeah, and I think that's another good aspect of the trainers having field experience. Some of our trainers are still working in the field as of today, so they're up on everything that's going on, and each one of them has their their stories of how to relate these different instances. Put the program together, but each one of these trainers has to take it and kind of make it their own. They follow the curriculum, they follow the flow, they cover the subjects that we want covered in the program, but then they add their side of it, the experiences they've had in the field. And to me, I think that works really well for the students, that they don't have somebody who's just up here reading off of a board or looking at a slide and telling you information that may or may not they may not believe in. If it's somebody who's just a teacher per se, we have people here that are been in the field, done those things, laid on the ground next to these guys, in the grease, in a hot kitchen, in cold places, you name it. And I think that experience in the field when you're teaching them plays out to where they get in tuned with you, they listen to you, they start opening up and talking as students, and sharing things with you. And I think that's, you kind of build that little camaraderie with each little class. And, we try to make it fun too. We joke around with them. Um, we're doing serious work. We're trying to be, follow safety protocols all
Mm-hmm.
the time. But you're spending a lot of time with these individuals over that 8-week period. And so, you build some relationships there, and, you hear about their families and their situations. And that just builds that trust.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, and I think that goes a long way too, for
Yeah,
sure.
I want to talk about that safety aspect because this is a great opportunity for you to learn how to do the job safely in a controlled environment, not in a kitchen where there's
Yeah.
people working around you. There's you're underneath a fryer, they're cooking in one and next to it. You're in an oven, they're pulling food out of the oven on top of it or next to it. I mean, this is a controlled environment where you can learn safely. We're going to teach you the proper PPE, protocols and that kind of thing to make sure you're equipped to go out in the field. That's a huge aspect of what we do. So that's really cool that you brought that up, the safety part, because everyone, I
Yeah.
mean, we've all seen horror stories. We don't want to be involved in that kind of stuff. We want to make sure our guys are taken care of.
Yeah. Like I say, we're following lockout, tag out procedures. We try to build that habit with them,
Mm-hmm.
especially during the electric phase of this, which is 3 weeks long. So we spend 3 weeks on electricity in this out of that 8 weeks. That's the base of everything. Everything, pretty much everything we do has electricity
Mm-hmm.
involved with it. So that is our main focus. Um, but lockout, tag out, safely taking readings, how you do that. You know, practice of power it down. If you I've always told them, you've got to put a clamp meter on to take an amp draw. If it's in a tight area, be safe, shut the
Yeah.
unit off, put your clamp on it, now power it up and take the reading. I've had some previous, employees that had some little risky situations happen where they just get complacent, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
they'll put their arm into something without thinking about it, and they've done it all the time, but then they end up touching something. So, we definitely uh, preach that very heavily, that they are following safety protocols. And then same thing when we do gas, same thing when we do steam, all the different aspects of that, the dangers. And
So what's the average class size? I mean, so say if you had a cutoff, what would be the maximum class size?
so we typically run 6 people in the class. Now that sounds small, but there's a reason for that. We will do 7. If we got somebody who needs to come in and there's no other classes available, and we don't want to pass on this individual, we've brought it in at 7 here since we've tagged this under Training Unlimited and rebranded it. Previously, we did some classes under Commercial Kitchen where we had 8 individuals, and I felt, and I wasn't teaching the class at the time. I had a previous trainer that was working for us, and he was teaching the class for me back then. And I just felt like we lost some of our edge
Mm-hmm.
because we're doing a lot of. I mean, you're spending a lot of time with each individuals, and so you have one instructor in the classroom, and you're watching over 6 individuals, and they do a lot of work on their own with our wiring stations, where they're wiring up different components and following schematics. And then we test each one of those and power them up and make sure that they've done things correctly. We try to avoid causing damage and creating shorts. We will, as an instructor, we look at it first and say, okay, if we see something that isn't right, we kind of give them clues of, what will happen if you do this, and
Mm-hmm.
then they'll click on it. But found that 6 to me is the prime number. Especially, you've done factory trainings, and I've done factory trainings, and a lot of times you got
Mm-hmm.
15, 16, even 20 people in these classes. And if they have a piece of equipment there and they only have one, it's very difficult, for everybody to take a part and be a
Mm-hmm.
part of that hands-on portion of that class. So being 6 individuals, it makes that a little more manageable. I think
Yeah.
we get a better outcome out of it.
Yeah, and it gives you more one-on-one and more attention. Like I said, this is a huge part of these people's career development, and we got to give them every chance in the world.
Yeah.
Uh, I teach class where I'll have 12 to 16 people, and you got to learn everybody's learning style. Everyone
Yeah.
learns a little
Yeah.
different. You got to try to figure out. You'll have some that are ahead of the others. You'll have some that are behind. You got to always, try to teach the lowest person and build him up to meet up with everybody else. It's him or her, and it's a wild thing to do in a week. That's why I like seeing the program. We have is 8 weeks long.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to dump all kinds of knowledge into these people in 6 days, 7 days, and then expect them to remember it all because there's no way possible you could do that.
Yeah. I mean, we basically slow the process down.
Mm-hmm.
We use PowerPoints to kind of, it's our guide. As I tell the students, this is not really for us to sit here and read verbatim off the screen. That's not the point of the screen. The screen is
Mm-hmm.
really, PowerPoint is for the trainer to follow a guide, and each one of the trainers uh, puts their input on based on what's on the slide. But our point is always to look at it, talk about the subject, and then go prove it hands on, so that we're not just sitting there. As technicians, they don't want to sit there and watch videos and watch PowerPoints all day long. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, the point of ours is always whatever we're teaching you, we're going to now go over and have you do it with your hands and prove it to you.
That's
But
the
we told you
same.
it does work.
That's the same thing I try to do with my guys. Is I try to get to the PowerPoint and like if I see, I know we have so many slides or so many things we got to cover. But if I see the guys starting to
Yeah.
do the head bob and stuff, okay, let's go out here. We're going to talk about it out here on this piece of equipment. We're going to go out here and let's put our hands on
Yeah.
it. Let's do this, and then we can bring them back in, give them a break. Back and forth, and that seems to be a good mix.
Yeah.
I've been in classes where you sit through PowerPoints for like 3 days, and you're like, I didn't learn anything because I just stared at the screen and zoned out for 3 days.
Yeah.
And now you're giving me a certificate saying I can fix this. I have no idea what we just did. just to be honest, people. I got to learn with my hands, not my eyes.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer. There's some of the virtual stuff out there, and it does have its uses. I
And
like the
it's
virtual things for um, how to do something. It's like if you knew how to try to get to a part or take something off, those virtual type trainings like that are showing you in that process. I think those are really great. Um, but still a firm believer in the hands-on side of that, and I think our technicians in our industry learn much better in that environment.
that virtual's come a long ways in the
Yeah.
last few years. It's getting a lot better. I remember when I first, like 10 years ago, they tried to get me to do one. Like you drag the meter leads and like you touch somewhere and like it
Yeah.
wouldn't register. And I'd be like, I'm not doing this. Like, no, I'm like, I can't do this. And now it's like, I was at AHR and I think Takeo has VR goggles and they have like, you can like work on their valves and their pumps
Yeah.
in the VR world. I'm like, this is insane. I'm like, this is cool. You go by their booth and hang out and tear some valves apart, put some pumps together in the virtual reality world.
Yeah, I've looked at some of that. They were at a conference one time, and it was HVAC, and it
Mm-hmm.
was pretty interesting to be able to put yourself in that environment, to go through those steps. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Probably, yeah, it's come a long way. It probably continue to get better and better and better. Uh, we always got to be open to all kinds of opportunities
Mm-hmm.
of teaching people in different ways. We have some ideas on how to do that to
Mm-hmm.
down the road here, not just the classroom setting, but other
Mm-hmm.
areas where we can make information available to our technicians so they can
So
easily access.
I'm gonna ask this question. So,
Mhm.
have we gotten some feedback from manufacturers about what we're doing with the Training Unlimited program? What has manufacturers said about it? Do they like it? Do they don't like it, or
I
do they
have
support it?
had, yeah, I have had nothing but good stuff back from them. They've some of our manufacturers have supported us in equipment availability.
That's
That's
awesome.
again, that's equipment used to be pretty easy to come by back in the day. Since our COVID years of 2020, equipment's been a little harder to come by. So we've had several manufacturers very supportive, and one acquiring equipment for us, or looking out for us,
Mhm.
items for us, and donating those items to us. We've also had teamed up with a couple of the manufacturers to come in post class. So we had a couple instances last year where as soon as we wrapped up that 8-week course, I had two manufacturers come into two of our locations, Minnesota as well as in San Antonio, and they followed up that class with those individuals, plus other technicians in the company who had wanted some training, um, to get a couple other certifications under their belt. So that was another plus, right? To me, they spent 8 weeks learning about electric, gas, and steam, and troubleshooting skills, and then have a factory come in right after that and certify you on a couple of their pieces of equipment. And to me, that just built the confidence of those students much even greater, because now they can say, okay, I've been taught on that specific, because our class is not built around specific equipment. We do a lot of it to where when they come out of there, they should be able to work on any convection oven or any steamer, any range, things like that. But we get to specific items. That's where that factory side of it comes in. And so, yeah, we've had pretty good support so far, and I have heard nothing but good stuff from the different manufacturers that I've talked to.
Yeah, that's really cool. You know, manufacturers, everyone does things their own way. I mean, there's 10 different oven manufacturers and they all do everything 10 different ways.
Yeah.
But it's glad to see they're getting behind and supporting what Unlimited University is trying to build here and Training Unlimited is trying to build. It's really cool to see that they support that, because I mean, they understand, they want the guys out there servicing their equipment to be trained, to do things safely, to be armed with the most knowledge they can before going out there, because it's going to make their job and the people in the call centers jobs easier.
Yeah.
There's no worse. I mean, I hear it all the time. I talk to a lot of service guys, and there's no worse feeling than when someone calls and like, "Oh, you got a multimeter? What's that?" Like, how are you working on my piece of equipment and you don't know what a multimeter is, or how do I turn this thing on? I'm like, oh boy. I always thought that was a joke until I've had people call me. I'm like, you're working on this, and you don't have this or this. Why are you there? Well, they told me to go work on it. I'm like, oh boy.
Well, to tell on myself, when I transferred into this industry, I really didn't know how to use a meter. I mean, as an electrician, we only, is it hot? You just saw a little bar that moved up and down that said you had either 120 volts or maybe you had 240. That was about it. You didn't dig into anything about it. We were just concerned about continuity.
Yep.
So I really had to learn a lot about how to really use a meter back then. So it was a little pretty eye opening.
Well, if you're not a service electrician, you don't really use a meter unless like something bad happens and you're forced kind of into it. So
yeah, I mean, I had a little bit of it with, I did a little more circuitry. I mean, more control work in the petroleum industry, but even then, still, we didn't get into that deep to where we needed to know that information. We had what you call the wiggy.
Yeah, I had a wiggy when I was an electrician. It had a little bar and it buzzed. And it vibrated and then it buzzed. And you could check continuity with it.
That's about it. Yeah, you didn't.
How high the bar went was how high the voltage was.
That's exactly right.
I think I still got it out here somewhere in the barn.
I think I gave it to one of my friends at one point finally, but it's I'm really excited about what we've been able to accomplish. Like I say, we started this about a year and a half ago now, and we've to this point we've graduated 63 students out of the classes between CKPS, Whaley, and this year we had a couple classes up in Minnesota. So we already have 72 plus on our slate to get through minimum next year. All our classes are scheduled out next year. We have some room for a couple of places to add in. And then the other side of it, we're looking at, and we've been messing around with this at Whaley's, where we're bringing in seasoned technicians and doing a little tune-ups with them. Because people get, a lot of technicians, they get into that habit of, they start skipping steps as they get comfortable with a piece of equipment. Once they know a piece of equipment, they start skipping little steps periodically. So we've been bringing them back in at their location, and they've had some success in improving their daily output just by kind of refreshing them on some of the electrical skills and gas skills.
Yeah, that's a good point. Over the time, people just get kind of they jump ahead, and sometimes it bites them in the butt, or they
Yep.
think they know it and they, take a guess because it's been this in the past when it really wasn't. Um, but that's awesome that we're still investing in the guys that we have. They've been here for years, and we just notice they're getting a little sloppy, maybe a little lazy. Bring them in and address some of those things to try to get them back on track. That's really cool to do.
Yeah. No, and not like so. We're gonna work on spreading that out again through the other offices and other classrooms. Um, Look forward to that.
So, are you doing like a class per quarter at each location, or is it just
It's basically we're holding 2 classes every month
nice?
next year. So there's the only month that we don't have a class scheduled for the most part is December. Um, in scheduling, we've always, I come to the holiday period, after Thanksgiving, you really don't want,
Hmm.
individuals being away from their families because it's a commitment. Not only is, USG committing to these students and their careers and growing their careers, but the students also are committed to the program as well. And so I don't, I hate to see people that have to be away from their homes because, some of the students who are traveling afar and come in, they stay, for 3 weeks straight. For the ones who have a more of a travel time to get there, that's not reasonable. We've kept them over the weekends and so they're away from their family. Some of them
Hmm.
are away from their family for 3 weeks straight and come back for a week, come home, go home for a week, come back for 2 weeks, and so on. So I hate to take that away from them in the holidays.
Oh yeah.
So we try to wrap up everything uh, for the most part before Thanksgiving. This next year we have one that'll have a. It fell just right to where they would be in the field the week of Thanksgiving, so they would actually be home, and then we had a couple weeks left to wrap up right the first week of December. Uh,
So you're writing the training, the schedule, and everything, huh? It's a busy time.
well, I didn't put the whole schedule. I worked with some of the other individuals. Jeff does a lot of that. He's been big support for me.
Hmm.
He's kind of covering the whole Whaley side of it. I mean, he's done a lot. He's helped me on the with tests and quizzes and things of that nature. A lot of this program was in my head.
Hmm.
So I had my PowerPoints and I had the information that was in my head, and my previous trainer had it in his head, and we just saw the slide and started talking. Well, when you start to have to take that information and put it more into a curriculum form, it was a lot of work actually and I still doing some cleanup on it, but taking it from that side of setting and pulling it back into more of a uh, true curriculum processes was a lot different. So, but he's been a big help to me. Jeff has, I think that's been the key. All these trainers, we've got trainer up at GP. That's Sean. He's been he works out in the field every day during class. He's there at class and schedules out that 8 weeks to be in class. So that's instrumental. And we've got a couple new trainers out in Sacramento. I'll be out there actually next week. I head out on the next week to go out there and wrap up the build out of that classroom and get everything ready because we got class starting there on January 6th. So we'll have our grand opening, ribbon cutting ceremony out there here the first part of January. And we look forward to, and we've already, like I said, we have 12 classes already scheduled out for next year. The first two are already full. The next two already have over 2/3 full. So the classes are filling up pretty quick.
So when someone comes on, say we hire an individual either fresh out of high school or they're sick of what they're doing, they want to make a change. How soon before do we send them off? I mean, can we send them off fairly quickly? Or I know you said it's booked out a little bit right now, but
Well, we like to, we do recommend it if you have somebody that you want to bring on board, as we call a green, right?
mhm.
Right, a green technician. If you want to bring them on board, it's good to bring them on, a month or two ahead of time, if you can. That allows them to kind of get embedded within the brand that they're working with, and also on top of that, you do find out if this truly is what they want to do.
Mhm.
So they get a good glimpse of the kind of work they do, the kind of hours they keep, what's out there. that working environment. So I think that's a good starting point to give that little bit of time before we bring them into a class. Um, but the class wasn't designed to say fix people.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got somebody who's been working for you a year and a half, 2 years, that's not, this class is not for them. It's for somebody who wants to learn,
Mm-hmm.
start a new career.
Nice, nice. Well, anything else you want to cover?
I can't think of anything. I mean, like I say, like I say, it's been rewarding to me,
Mm-hmm.
um, to share knowledge. I mean, that doesn't do any good just in my head or any of these other people's heads. Um, I will say it's much different to teach a group of people, and I think you may have become aware of that. I used to have technicians ride with me.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of, I would say that's kind of how I got my start
Mm-hmm.
as a trainer. Eventually a lot of the new people who we hired at Commercial Kitchen rode with me for those few weeks or 3 weeks before we turned them loose. That's a whole different thing, teaching people, one to one, and then you
Mm-hmm.
switch to that classroom environment where, like you said earlier, you have 6 to 12 individuals, and each one learns differently,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to make sure you convey that message to all of them, and making sure that you're not leaving anybody behind, because we want them to be successful. That's our goal, is to be successful, create a career for them. Hopefully, they stay with us. And we as a company do get that ROI after our
Mm-hmm.
investment, pretty quick, and that is the key to the program. And that's what we've seen over the years is, those individuals of, not only are they earning money for themselves, but they're also helping the companies they work for be successful.
That's a good point to make. You can come here and you can work for General Parts like me, or you can go down to San Antonio and work for Commercial Kitchens. Um, but like, say if you work in Indy with me, and hey, my wife wants to move to Texas, or my wife wants to move to Florida, we have places. It may not be the same uniform, but we have a place that you can go,
Yeah.
and we can get you there. We can help you go there and get on your feet and get a job. I mean, we're all across the country, and it seems like we're growing every couple of
Yep.
months. We can pick up something else. So, I mean, if you don't like where you live at, and eventually you decide you want to move somewhere else, we'll find you a place.
Yeah, and I know we've had some instances of that. I mean, people's
Mm-hmm.
parents. Somebody's parents might be sick, and their parents live in an area where one of our other companies are.
Mm-hmm.
That gives them that opportunity to be able to move and take care of their parents, and in those cases, I know we've had a couple of that situations happen. So yeah, it's all unique, all united. I mean, that's still a pretty good play there.
Yeah.
We value our core values, and we display those in our classrooms, and we talk about those
Mm-hmm.
constantly throughout the course too. Um, so we try to embed that, and not just talk about the brand, but talk about the individual brands that they may be with, but the USG brand as a whole, and how they fit into that puzzle, and the
Sweet.
opportunities that are there. You know, and like I say, we will invest in you, and we are investing in you. Um, we hope that you stick with us.
Yep. Take it serious and stick with it, and you'll.
There's always somewhere to go. I always tell that there's always an opportunity around the corner for everybody at some point,
Yeah.
especially for a company that's growing as well as we are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure. I talk to someone all the time, like, oh, I had a guy on from Canada, and I had no idea he worked for a heritage subsidiary up there. I was like, oh, we're coworkers, dude.
We're family. We're family.
We're coworkers, man. So it's
Yeah.
always cool to see where someone works, and then like you go and find out that hey, that's actually a sister company, or something along those lines. It's always pretty cool. So
Yeah.
I won't keep you much longer, but I want to thank you for coming on, and I look forward to working with you in the future on some projects
Yep.
we talked
Yep.
about. Um,
I do too.
I teach this week for Fry Master. I'd like to see the Garland thing get rolling again. I'd like to be involved in some of the refrigeration stuff, because I think training the new techs is what we need to do as an industry. We're not getting any younger.
Nope.
Everybody's aging out. I am starting to see light though in the younger generation. Like I said, I have two kids that work here. One's 22, one's 19. Some of their friends are all blue collar people. They all want to get their hands dirty, and I think we're starting to turn that page a little bit. But programs like this is going to be a huge asset for this industry.
To kind of play on that is I've been impressed with the amount of younger
Mm-hmm.
students that have come in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times in the past when we were doing some of this, we would have people coming in that they worked somewhere else for 20 years and they decided they wanted to try something new. A lot of the students we have coming in, they're young. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've had a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 21-year-old, 22-year-old. Now I'm tickled to death to see that we've got this young generation coming in. I think they're learning that college isn't for everybody.
No,
And
no,
there's
I'm
nothing
not.
wrong with, not kicking
No,
college is
no.
great, but you can come into a industry and learn a trade, not go into debt for
Mm-hmm.
$60,000 and get paid to learn. Uh, that's pretty amazing opportunity.
Yeah, that's something we didn't discuss. When these people are in class, they're getting paid.
Yes.
You're not there for free. You're getting paid. You're getting fed lunch, or I imagine you guys bring lunch in, and or
Yeah,
they on their own.
they have their per diem. Hotels are covered for anybody who's coming out of town, travel, and they're getting paid per hour. So yeah, I mean it's a win-win for them if they really are invested in putting their feet, jumping straight into it and going after it.
Just imagine being an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid living with your parents still, and you get kicked. You go away for 3 weeks at a time, or 8 weeks total. You get per diem. You're living in a hotel. You don't have mom and dad over your shoulder. It'd be a pretty cool time, I think.
Yeah, we had one kid. He wanted to stay. He said, "Can I stay longer? Can I stay with the kid?"
No, no, you gotta go back home,
He
kid.
says it was much quieter here.
That's funny. Well, David, I appreciate you finally coming on. I've been trying to get you on for a
Yeah,
little bit, but you are a hard man to nail down. Like you said,
yeah.
you gave me 2 nights, and one I was already busy, and I made sure we had made it happen tonight. Um,
No, I appreciate it.
I
Sorry it took
really,
as long as it did, but yeah, I've been running around quite a bit this year, and still got a lot to do next year. There's a lot of
yeah,
big plans.
I really appreciate what you're doing for this industry and what you're doing for the Limited Service Group. It just shows that you really do want to build people up, and Limited Service Group really wants to build people up, and it's refreshing
Yeah,
to see. So,
thanks.
but I appreciate you coming on, and have a good night.
All right, you too, Pat.
If you guys would, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast. It really helps us grow and helps us know which direction to move in. Also, if you have any suggestions for guests, please email me at commercialkitchenchronicles@gmail.com. Or if you want to be a guest, email me. Love to have you guys on. Thanks a lot. See you next week.